The disgusting Berlin Wall. German lunatics in East Germany accepted he became an Italian citizen. Then tried to go back to what they were doing before he was abducted, as if they should resume whatever it was that was inappropriate before he was abducted. Then thought, oh, that's right, we were tormenting him by reminding him of being nearly fatally wounded with a machine gun on the Western Front during WW1. They had been doing it to see if they could make him have a nervous breakdown and regress back to the severely traumatized state he was in immediately after his emergency surgeries. Like he was in 1917 bedridden in hospital. When they started building the wall on the 13th of August, 1961, they immediately tried to make it look like the no man's land area between trenches on the Western Front where the Kaiser was machine-gunned when Crown Prince and in the German army. They found reels of WW1 trench-style barbed wire and started rolling it out on the route that would become the Berlin Wall. As if he might see it, or would be told, and he would immediately have a nervous breakdown back to a traumatized bedridden soldier state, unable to talk. They handed up whilst they were at it. They got the film cameras out and organized some people pretending to be German public to get out and play act for the cameras whilst they rolled the barbed wire out along the planned route starting point. They told the participants to pretend to be upset about the wall cutting Berlin in two for the cameras whilst staring at the wire going up. They had them stand around, pretending to sob and cry, staring at it, waving like lunatics. Some people mistook it for waving at people on the other side about it going up, even though they could all walk around it. They also got people out made over to look like evil heinous idiot Albert Einstein, whose sister had self-aborted their inbred extortion plot baby in April 1944, and then never mentioned it to anyone outside the jail until after Kaiser Adolf escaped 1960. Whilst trying to look upset about Berlin being cut in two, as if waving to friends on the other side, they pretended to sob and say things like, oh, no. Albert is never going to take over that royal family with an inbred child bred in his sister Sadie. And statements like we wanted her to stand in public with the child and wave at the public like this, whilst they impersonated royals from other countries waving to a crowd and pretending to sob into a hanky. Even though they had been pretending Einstein was dead since the mid-1950s, he died in 1970, they were talking about him in present tense as if he was still alive. There is plenty of footage about it. A lot of the disturbed people involved got out and about in Einstein wigs and frizzed their hair out for it. Pretending to sob that the inbred baby they were going to pretend to steal my Hohenzollern royal family with was really dead, and it didn't grow up on the other side of the bars. If you have seen footage of people doing strange waves whilst pretending to cry, filmed when the Berlin Wall started construction with WW1 barbed wire and no man's land obstacles, you now know they were pretending to be upset about Sadie's inbred extortion plot Brett not really existing. And the idea that she would never be seen waving to crowds with it as if the new royal family of Germany. Sadie Einstein was dead by the time construction on the Berlin Wall started in 1961. Her brother Albert Einstein had been deliberately illegally incorrectly publicized as dead in the mid-1950s. They still got out and pretended to cry that her and her baby were never going to pretend to become my Hohenzollern royal family anyway, for the cameras, when they started building the wall. Italians immediately started pretending that the new wall would only come down, with Germany reunified, and Kaiser Adolf let resume being monarch, with the public informed he was alive and well like in a press conference if he paid an Italian prostitute for sex, provided film or photographic proof he actually penetrated her and ejaculated in, and was found with his bags packed waiting to be picked up in a car for a trip to Berlin for a press conference for television news. Provided he had her full name, date of birth, address, and contact details for them, so they could get proof he actually screwed her. They all still think people get fooled by the footage of the first few days of the wall going up, as if assuming it was people crying about the city being split in two, and family and friends being on the other side. They then started acting out trench warfare accounts of what had happened in and around Kaiser Adolf's battalion during WW1. Pretending to be trying to get to the other side of the new wall, but really having themselves filmed impersonating incidents during the trench warfare Kaiser Adolf was involved in for the cameras. They did all sorts of weird things afterwards, including making a part of it like a Newcastle wall. All the whilst Italian lunatics did candid camera to him in daily life. As if waiting for him to offer a female Italian prostitute money for sex. They checked to see if he was waiting by his driveway at his new residential address with his bags packed with a prostitute's name, phone number, address, date of birth, and possibly a photo of his semen in her vagina every day by driving past his house to see if he was sitting there with a suitcase. Always thinking that if he was one day, it would be hilarious. They then modified the wall to make it look more serious and obstacle. They started reconstructing parts of it to look like high trench walls from World War I on the Western Front. In some cases standing there with a photograph comparing the new real wall to an image of a WW1 trench wall. When it was finally complete, they rendered it to look like the concrete shoes he wore for 15.5 years when prisoner and made it as wide through central Berlin as the train lines he was held prisoner under. They dramatized it, but there were convenient tunnels underneath particular types could use anytime they wanted when the thing was nominally the officially sealed border. It was so disgusting to me after I was born and authorized as Crown Prince that when it came down, I took very little notice. The main reason being that it came down after the firstborn child was born to my stolen semen in 1989, after my semen was stolen when I was unconscious, outdoors, in October 1988, just over 6 years after Kaiser Adolf died in 1982. I just don't think about if there was any other reason for it coming down, apart from the firstborn child to my stolen sperm being born. I did not have sex with an Italian prostitute or any other female before it did. I will not pretend I did because they broke their own word and took it down without Kaiser Adolf or me actually doing it. Italians regularly stole biological samples off Kaiser Adolf after he settled in Italy, collecting a bizarrely large amount of them. If he went out, his house was broken into so they could pluck clean his razors etc. for hair and other biological samples. In the end, whenever he shaved, he just threw the razor out of the window on the second floor down to the street, waited for it to bounce and make a noise, and then listened for the sound of someone's shoe scurrying over to pause and pick it up and then hurry off again, to keep them out of his house. When he was introduced to the television, they set him down in front of scrapbook-like fake history programs about him, including one program on repeat that featured a still photo of him doing a Wilhelm II salute that never moved. The entire speech they faked for it used a still photo of him with his arm out doing a salute. It had film of an Italian man chewing gum's mouth superimposed over his mouth in the photograph, who pretended Kaiser Adolf only moved his mouth in a salute position, for a speech asking people to go forth into Poland and kill all Jews. Where he could see the gum in the mouth of the Italian idiot involved, who interrupted the fake speech to chew on it like an Italian prostitute every now and then when it was recorded. They sat him down and recorded him watching it, on a flickering fritzy television, with mouths agape and noises. Kaiser Adolf's hero after he went into politics was his older ineligible brother Ernst Röhm, founder of the Salvation Army charity after World War I. Ernst was horrifically tortured and murdered in 1934, and Kaiser Adolf identified his body as his official emergency contact. They set Kaiser Adolf down in front of the television and made their final mistake. They showed him a fake history documentary on the television that pretended Adolf organized, funded, and ordered the abduction, rape, mutilation, and torture of his older brother Ernst. Then pretended he went to check if the perpetrators followed his instructions. Then pretended when questioned as to why the illegal torture and murder act had happened, Kaiser and Chancellor Adolf had given a speech or two explaining why, and the public and authorities decided it was fair enough, and decided he would not be arrested, charged, or trialed for it. As if he could admit to a crime like that publicly, and be let get away with it if the public and the police decided to let it ride. Everyone who has embellished the fictitious tale of Kaiser and Chancellor Adolf Hitler the Hohenzollern, usually without the Kaiser bit mentioned, ordering his brother Ernst tortured and murdered since is a complete lunatic. Kaiser Adolf viewed the fictional documentary on Ernst's death on television in the early 1960s after being asked to watch it by lunatic Italians around him. It was so they could secretly record his emotional response to it with hidden cameras and microphones. The fake documentary he saw on Ernst's death was the reason he never returned to Germany after seeing it, before his death in April 1982 in Järingen, Gippsland. If anybody asked why he didn't go back to Germany after the early 1960s, he quietly said, "I didn't go back there because of what they pretended I did to my brother." An example of that type of lunacy from before he was abducted in December 1943 was my Royal Hohenzollern family's original Reichstag building. When it was designed and then commissioned for construction in 1884, it had a one-quadrant palace apartment for Kaiser Adolf's father Crown Prince Alois Hitler the Hohenzollern to move into to live in when it was completed. It was designed into the building so Prince Alois could raise eligible children in it. When Prince Edmund was born in 1886, it was still under construction. When it was completed, Prince Alois' family was settled at the then current family address and decided not to move into the apartment in the Reichstag to live, even though it was specifically included in the building for Prince Alois. Prince Adolf got teased mercilessly by others that his father never moved in, and he never got to grow up in the Reichstag. When he won a seat in Parliament in 1933 and was elected Chancellor, he went into the Reichstag to celebrate his election victory and was filmed celebrating in the building. They burnt it down because he went into it after his election victory, because there was images of him in there afterwards. That is why some are obsessed with squatting in my current Reichstag, rebuilt specifically for me by name due to a court ruling after Re-Unification in the 1990s. Some would have pretended it was rebuilt for a brat bread with my stolen sperm instead though. Not really the case, according to reality, the court order that caused it to be reconstructed.